Next on stage, representatives of two tech giants that are betting on the digital world.
Pearly Chen, who's the VP over at HTC, leading their VR efforts.
Vive is the start of another exciting journey for HTC into the future. We want to be at the forefront of creating premium VR, raising the bar for all the content creators out there to dream for bigger and better. This truly will be a fascinating new world that I'm very excited to see for my children.
The HTC Vive XR Elite, a foldable pair of VR glasses, feels pretty awesome and magical.
We are looking to position Samsung for success in the future. We are able to freely think about what it is that will allow Samsung to have success in the future, and then Samsung, with all of the different touch points that it has, is able to utilize our recommendations, our investments, our acquisitions, our partnerships to accelerate and sustain that growth and competitive advantage.
What drives next are people, right? We're ultimately trying to serve people and make their lives better.
Samsung is opening a metaverse store in Decentraland.
Welcome to the stage, Pearly Chen of HTC Vive and Aaron Childress of Samsung Next.
Hello, everyone. How was lunch? Good.
Re-energized, awake. Awesome. It's time for session 2. And it's going to be an awesome one. We're here with Pearly and Aaron. You already got the hype video. And the reason those two are here is because despite the size of the corporations, HTC and Samsung, those two are deep in the weeds, working with founders. And in fact, we share multiple portfolio founders. You know, Pearly and us, we've both invested in Shapes, which you saw earlier, Durable, which will come later. And then AJ from Live, unfortunately couldn't make it. He's all the way in Berlin. He thought about flying, but he wanted to focus on building, which is great. I love to hear that sometimes. And Aaron is also part of Live, so with Samsung Next. And so it's awesome working like in the trenches with you. And so the first thing I want to ask and find out is, where does working with founders investing so early stage, I've seen HT invest pre-seed sometimes, seed stage sometimes. Where does it fit into the bigger vision of what your companies aim to achieve?
It's really at the center of it all. You know, HTC as a smartphone pioneer since very early days. This time around, as we enter spatial computing, XR, we knew that from day one, it's through the founders that in the trenches that we have to work with, build with, learn from. So from day one of shipping HTC Vive, the original one back in 2015, we started this program called ViveX. It's a $100 million balance sheet commitment to invest in early stage founders. And with that program, and of course now with a different kind of product market fit maturity target now, we've invested in close to 200 companies globally, always early pre-C, now starting to get into more A and sometimes B as well. But it's the rising tide that lifts all boats, and we need to learn with these founders. We look for very ambitious vision for the vision, but always a very kind motivation. So I joined HTC from an investment banking career, the vampire squid of Goldman Sachs and Wall Street. Xie Wang, who's the founder of HTC, really set for me an example of a leading Asian woman, no less, on the global technology stage, pioneering computing paradigm shifts from motherboard to smartphone to now XR and spatial computing, always with that vision of how this can impact our lives in a positive way, how we connect with one another, how it makes us more human. And so from day one in our investment direction, a lot of these attention has gone into healthcare, into education, into how we learn for lifetime, how we connect with one another. That's always been the driving force, and hence how it drives my decision, my investment thesis, and how we've been deploying capital for all this time. So it's really at the center of everything. It's not an afterthought, it's a PR stunt or something nice to have. It's really something that is really core to how we believe this ecosystem needs to be built.
Amazing. Yeah, ecosystem building is so core, especially in an industry that's still so young and so early, where, in the break we were saying the XR industry is still so young, where so many people know each other, right? So many times I meet a founder and they say, oh, I actually know the other founder, or I've met him 2 or 3 years ago. So that's amazing. How about you, Aaron? Tell us about Samsung.
Yeah, so I guess I'll take it like 1,000 feet up. If you look at Samsung, we're a consumer electronics company, so everything that we do is in the service of selling you more hardware, right? Whether that's phones, TVs, or VR headsets. But, through that lens, we do think that the metaverse is going to play a substantial role in the future, and we think that the market is about ready. So just kind of give you some data points to color that. Anon did a great job earlier. I caught some of that. But one thing is the hardware is moving. So, Meta Quest 2 came out around the same time as PS5. So I think it was like the fourth quarter of 2020. As of the first quarter of this year, Quest 2 sold something like almost 15 million units, whereas PS5 sold around 11.5. So it's just, that, and then also when you consider sort of like the library for those, the content library around it. So there's less than like 300 native like Quest titles versus like PS5, almost 600. So you're selling more units with less content. I know there's other factors such as like cost and stuff like that, but it just tells us that, hey, there is a market for VR experiences. And then when you combine that with, for example, just the generational shifts in tastes and preferences, half of kids 9 to 12 in the US play Roblox once a week at least. And then a good number here is, I think it was 2021, where like digital asset purchases for like kids purchasing digital assets with their allowance surpassed candy, and candy had been like the leader forever.
Digital assets definitely healthy, yeah.
Yeah, so long story short is we're taking metaverse seriously. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Pearly, I remember when we first met, we had lunch, and you were telling us kind of like how HTC is taking a different angle to VR, where there's different brands. For example, like Sony attacking purely gaming, Meta a lot of like consumer. You do a lot of enterprise training and a lot of different unique angles where there's true unique use cases to VR. Maybe you can share a couple of the use cases where HTC and the entire platform is being used already today.
Absolutely. I mentioned healthcare a little earlier. And did you know that surgeons who are trained in VR make 6 times less errors than surgeons trained in conventional methods? Wouldn't you want your surgeons to be trained in VR next time you're on the operating table? A lot of very high stake but low frequency and high risk kind of procedures can be improved. Learning outcome can be greatly improved. Learning engagement can be greatly improved just by the simplicity of offering a simulation. And the access to that simulation used to be very expensive and inaccessible. Right now, with holograms, with very photorealistic virtual environments, whether that's mixed or virtual augmented reality, can deliver these really profound impact already on patient outcome, learning outcome, people's lives today. We don't need to talk too much about any pipe dream of metaverse, how this will change all of our everyday life per se, but these applications that are applied in clinical settings, whether that is training your healthcare providers in a better way, or that's delivering therapeutic benefits to patients at the comfort of their own home via headsets, reimbursable by insurance, and having all these industry stakeholders coming together to see where the real world benefit already XR can deliver today. It is enough to get us up in the morning to very excited about continue to support founders building and pushing in these boundaries. And that's really we're just scratching the surface in productivity and enterprise, in helping scientists discover drugs faster by offering a 3-dimensional molecular modeling platform to enhance that collaboration, the speed, the understanding. I believe that VR or XR at large, when we are so innately 3D, is a possibility for us to connect with ideas with one another in a much more intuitive way. And based on this, potential is truly, truly boundless. That's healthcare, education we learn about. Last time I came to New York, I went to Egypt with my children in VR headset in a 45-minute expedition across time and space. When we came back to reality, I would never forget that spark in their eyes, in their mind. Well, what is reality? We've been to Egypt together, even if we haven't in physical reality, but we've done that together in virtual reality in a very profound way. So the magic, the wonder, I think Anand was referring to it earlier. During lunch, I think if I couldn't pull myself out early, I would have stayed in Red Pill all day, right? So a lot of the benefits that we can deliver through these founders building with the right motivation and vision is profound, and they exist today. So I really want us to focus on those and continue to focus on supporting these applications. So yeah. That's why it's so exciting.
That's incredible because there's two great angles to that you mentioned. One is the presence, which I've noticed when I compare to the Zoom, when I have team meetings, and you really feel like you're there. And sometimes you actually, what is really interesting, you make memories in VR. I've never made memories on Zoom, but I've made memories in VR.
Absolutely. I feel like, especially throughout the past 3 years, is really a sense of being more together in the age of physical isolation. Senior population was very impacted through the pandemic. A portfolio company of ours is called Mind VR. They focus on delivering VR connected experiences to seniors in living in skilled nursing facilities and senior living communities. So they have a sense of staying connecting to their loved ones, to do a virtual expedition together, go back to their childhood home, go to Paris, reminiscence therapy. The therapeutic benefits are proven and boundless and very profound.
That's amazing. I think that's also a Black Mirror episode called San Junipero. But
not so, because we're at the driving seat. We can decide that. I think isolation, addiction, a lot of the concerns are very valid. But that's why we're having these conversations early. And we already have the benefit of hindsight from what's happened in the past. Paradigm shifts, business models induce undesirable externalities. We can address them much more thoughtfully and early on this time. I'm optimistic about that.
100%. Aaron, there was actually a big announcement coming out with Google 4 days ago or so, where Google announced they're going to launch their own headset in collaboration with Samsung. Maybe you can share a little bit about that, as Samsung's entering the VR race now as well.
Yeah, sure. I think so. Yeah, like you said, the news did come out that Samsung's collaborating with Qualcomm and Google. I don't think there's many surprises there. Like the smartphone configuration is pretty similar. So
But where do you think you fit in? Like, is it on the gaming side, the consumer side, the enterprise side?
Yeah. So it's the way that it's branded right now is like an XR device, and it's going to be the experiences that here's what I can say about it. What we see as the opportunity within Samsung Next is to take like all of the goodness that Samsung is creating on the hardware side and layer experiences at the software and the content layer, right? Through like partnerships and collaborations. I know that's not like a.
It's all good. It's still early and unreleased.
I try to get the okay to kind of dive into it a little bit, but
have not.
All
good. No worries.
Yeah.
I'm curious, since you guys invest with founders, I know you're very passionate about like building the ecosystem Pearly, but is there also a strategic angle to, do you build with your founders where there's like integrations, whether it's with HTC or Samsung, where you integrate them to your stack, you find ways to, I guess, strategic multiply value versus simply being a shareholder?
So for us, the vision is what matters. The vision alignment is what matters. Oftentimes, they are not even building on Vive platforms because Quest is the dominating platform right now. So it really, the strategic synergy is great to have, but not a prerequisite. Absolutely. As I said, I feel like we're learning through these investments and through these founders. So we want to help them the best we can, offering our technology and ecosystem access the best we can as in the context that it helps them. If it doesn't, then we're supporting as an investor.
How would you?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, yeah. When Samsung Next invests, how often do you connect them with Samsung as the whole corporation where maybe there is an integration or where you find a way to make the startup, become a strategic, maybe BD relationship?
Right. So Samsung Next is sort of, it's not like your typical CVC in the sense that you're doing large deals that take a long time and you're expecting some direct commercial relationship. So we're like your average, like early stage tech investor. We come in seed, Series A is our sweet spot. But one thing we do provide is that sort of like option value of having that, arm's length relationship to like a strategic. We can advise on conversations and negotiations with strategic if you're interested in that, aka Samsung. But that's not like why we invest. Like we invest for like the learning We don't. We're pretty agnostic about the exit. We're not investing in saying like, hey, you gotta like, if you're successful, like Samsung is gonna have the first option. Like that's not what our blue.
So really about learning, like being on the ground, see what's being built.
If it's advantageous to the startup, we'll bend over to make those introductions. But we're investing like more purely for the learning.
I mean, that is one of the greatest benefits of the VC job is that you have access to the smartest people in the room and you can simply learn and listen and observe. I mean, so many things I've picked up just from seeing how they operate, how they prioritize, the decisions they make, and really fascinating. I'm curious. In my early presentation, my keynote, I mentioned how we have these bottlenecks that kind of like hold segments back, industries back. What to you is the kind of bottleneck that XR needs to solve? And is there a way where maybe HTC or Samsung can play a role in solving for that? Maybe you are actively solving for a certain bottleneck. We say, hey, if we fix this, we can have our mainstream moment.
I think form factor is a big deal, of course. I think for women and for many people who don't necessarily like to mess up their hair and makeup and face, it's oftentimes the traditional VR headset design doesn't feel very inclusive and comfortable or inviting. Hence, we know that all of our dream is to have a pair of sunglasses, XR device that doesn't exist today, but we have to make incremental steps towards that. Hence, Vive Flow, now Vive XR Elite, our effort in going towards that glasses form factor. Of course, the optical design needs to be there, as well as many engineering feat that have to be delivered to ship a product this compact, this sexy, hopefully, and versatile and powerful. It works as a fully standalone headset as well as a powerful PC headset connected via Wi-Fi or a cable, but also a pair of sunglasses form factor. If you were just packing on the go, I can fit it into this pocket here, and I think opens the door in more of a really that first initial hesitance of putting on this headset, and now it's just this and that. And I find myself getting in and out of VR much more comfortably and easily with more extended period of time engagement, as well just by improving the form factor as a first step. There are, of course, a lot of different directions that we still need to improve from content, software, service, usability perspective, but form factor is a big thing. People wearing headgears, turban, or people in supine positions in the clinical setting. We have to think about the form factor and how we can make it more usable for humans.
Do you have one of those XR Elites on you?
Right today? No, I should have. But no.
That's a shame. No, but I saw the videos. It looks incredibly
mixed
small.
reality, yes.
And maybe while we're on the topic, we're going to go to you in a second. Just want to dive into that for a second. Did HTC have to make any concessions to get to that form factor? Will like drop off quality, or is it just chips are getting better and?
You have the standard. It's a mobile processing device, of course. It's a Qualcomm XR2 platform versus a PC Vive Pro kind of device that's powered by very expensive GPUs and computer. But then in this device, you have the best-in-class mobile headset experience, as well as you can use it for your high-end PC game experience, as well as that relax, you pack on the go experience, and mixed reality. And then because a lot of advances have happened on software and computer vision, on tracking, sensing, all of this has become possible, and you'll see this continually accelerate and improve at a very impressive speed in terms of usability. So I wouldn't say that there have been trade-off per se. It's really this powerful, all-in-one, versatile thing that is also comfortable and sexy to wear.
Wonderful. I'm sure one day we'll have the lenses. That will be the final goal. How would you, Aaron?
Yeah, sure. So I think I'll take it in a little bit different direction. Like when I think about bottlenecks with respect to the metaverse, I don't really see them on the demand side, as we kind of hit on before. There's a new generation with tastes and preferences that are leading to new behaviors, and that's coming in the next 5 years. When you think about that, it takes almost like 5 years to make a great game, so it's not long. But on the tech side, I do perceive like some challenges, and so like one is, I know it was mentioned before, but like interoperability from like a technical challenge. Like I, as a user, need to be able to port my, my accomplishments, my history, my financials, like to these various worlds. And so those worlds need to be interoperable. When you look at like the internet, I think it went through like the protocol wars for something like 20 years or something like that. And then like the internet protocol, like TCP/IP came out of that basically said, hey, this is how we're gonna package and transfer data across disparate networks. And we need something like that because I think your main VR worlds right now, they're sort of like using their own rendering engines. They have their own file formats where they, store like objects, textures, and like player data. And then there's no thought around like how to make that compatible with other worlds. So you have like these like closed, these closed systems or like closed economies. And, if I have an avatar, I want to be able to render it in a hyper realistic world as well as a cartoon world. And so how do we do that? So interoperability is one. I'm going to wrap up. I think like synchronicity, is that a word? Synchronicity, like basically, I think like, so the internet wasn't really designed for synchronous, like shared experiences. So if you have like a real-time rendered virtual world, you're going to need like low latency, high bandwidth, continuous connectivity. And that's like almost a trilemma. So even Netflix, they're able to predict what you'll need and serve that up to you in advance. But you can't do that in real time. And then the last thing is concurrency, right? A bunch of us need to come into a virtual world and be able to stay there. But every time you add someone in a virtual world, it like makes the amount of data that needs to be sort of like processed and rendered, it increases exponentially. So I think those are like real problems.
And you mentioned the word interoperability, which is actually maybe a good angle to take for the next one. There's the whispers that Apple's launching a headset, right? And after that, we're going to have Apple, Sony, HTC, Meta, ByteDance. I mean, there's a long list at this point. The problem is most of the headsets are pretty expensive. And so a lot of people don't have a single headset, and it's going to be very pricey of two. And a lot of them are building silos. Sometimes there is exclusive content. How do you view about like how the VR market will shake out with all these competitors over the, let's say, 12 to 24 months? Let's say 24 months. But then equally, do you view that there will be interoperability between devices where it doesn't really matter what headset you use? Or do you really think that, they will own, let's say, enterprise or training? They will own gaming? Like, how will this develop?
We should really strive for an open ecosystem for our own benefits as users. It will be a very sad day if one large company dominating the ecosystem, offering one solution, then it truly will be the dystopian sci-fi scenario that we understand very well of already. So with that kind of insight and hindsight, I think we do want open ecosystem like internet is today. Somebody has to make sure that we all come to the table and agree that would be to the benefit of society, that we develop that way versus otherwise. And that's why there are important industry conversations happening already. And we need to all support OpenXR, use WebXR, use open standards that can make interoperability a reality. When developers can easily, they don't have to choose anymore whether I should support a Quest headset or a Vive headset. And Pico doesn't have to pay a lot of money for a developer port from one world to another. That's when developers can monetize more sustainably, where more innovation can happen, where adoption can happen because consumers don't need to buy one headset versus the other. It has to be open for everyone to be able to access and for this monetary economy to be sustainable at all, if we were to have a shot at all, in a way that we want to see for our kids, I think. So these open standards are at the core, at the table of this discussion, and we all need to agree that this is a direction, and we have to commit to supporting these open standards. That's where blockchain plays a role too. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, again, I think it's a willingness, a commitment to open standards and open ecosystem, and it's not just by words, but by actions too.
Yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, but also I think like the tech companies, they kind of want to make the trains. They don't really want to make the rails. So as they kind of figure out how they want to participate, I think that the open standard is going to just sort of like materialize as the best option. I think that as far as like who's going to win, like I don't know who's going to sell the most headsets. I don't know who's going to do this and that. But I think that as companies compete, there's always one winner, and that's the consumer. Yeah. So
love that. I'm curious, since you invest, I have LPs, many of them in the room, so I have to raise capital and I have a mandate. I have to tell them this is what we're going to do. You invest on behalf, of the company. Are you given a mandate? Are you just, exploring and seeing kind of what cool things are out there that you want to back? How do you come up with, what do you support? Because it's not just XR. I know, Aaron, you mentioned you're interested in robotics. Pearly, we've invested in BCIs, so I know there's a wide range of things. So kind of like, how do you define where you're looking?
What the brand stands for. So go back to my kind of first introduction of what Vive stands for. It's to unleash human imagination, combining the best of technology that we develop and help develop and humanity. Humanity as center. How do we bring a humanity-centered approach in building products, but also investing? So that's the mandate. It's balance sheet investing. We don't have LPs. That's correct. Just my CFO needs to sign on the documents that we have to go through the investment process with. But really, if there's the vision, the mandate that's aligned with that vision, then it's really straightforward.
How would you?
Yeah, I'm going to say a lot of that same thing, but I think like our only mandate is really to find and back the best founders in the areas that we care about, right? And so that we do get from Samsung. So the areas that we invest in are AI and robotics, which I happen to be on, media tech, fintech, health tech, infrastructure, which is like a horizontal, and Web3. And so, yeah, outside of that, there is a dialogue with the business units to make sure that like, hey, we're all on the same page and we're all aligned. But really, like, we have a pretty plain mandate, and that's what we action.
There is one of the most challenging things about investing in these really emerging technologies is being able to balance being early, taking risks, being innovative, but also not being too early where, backing AI in the 80s, let's say, for example, or there's a lot of VR got backed in the, early 2010s. And then there was a long stretch of hard times ahead. How do you know whether that's, a mental model you have or a gut feeling that tells you this is the right time for this?
Do we know? I don't think we know. We turn to the best of our intuition, and of course all the hard skills aside in doing the analysis and due diligence. One ultimately is intuition on the founder. Whether you think it's he or she is attacking the right vision and problem, and you can play a role in supporting that journey. I don't think too much about whether we're too early versus not, since we're betting really the company on this adoption curve that's taking a little longer than we expected, but we had always known it's going to be a marathon, never overnight sprint. It took probably 10 years for a smartphone to be truly ubiquitous, and this next sort of personal computing platform shift involves a lot more convergence of these tangential technologies that are exponential. It will take time, not the infrastructure of data networks too, 5G, 6G, called rendering. The blockchain as one of the many underlying infrastructure. There are many different things that need to converge to make this usability a magic. And that doesn't happen overnight. So hence, I really go back to the intuition. And those of us that are lucky enough and privileged enough to be learning through supporting these founders, we need to stay really humble and learn. We don't ever know. We just turn to our intuition, and hopefully we make the right decision for our stakeholders.
Then let me take one step deeper before we go to you. What are some maybe of these? What do we say are the most common traits of the founders? If the founder is one of those, the biggest common denominator, that leads to success, where you say, you've backed 200 companies, you said, right? What are the common traits you've seen, the ones that really, drove it home?
It's a clarity of vision. Mm-hmm. Clarity of vision. I would say that of Inga, of Ramses, of the founders that we are really excited to work with. Clarity of vision since day one. Business plans will change and they never are correct anyway. But and the commercial models can change, and you have to pivot 1, 5, 10 times along this really, really difficult journey. But if you have the clarity of the vision, where you're going, why you are doing what you're doing, then they will persevere. with the right personality. Of course, not everyone is able to persevere. Many have, of course, fallen off the face of earth in this long journey. But I find that clarity of vision paired with grit, really, they will not take no for an answer, and they will keep going at it until their vision comes alive.
I love that. No, it's because that's the one thing that will make you make it through those tough times. Love that.
Sorry?
I said, no, the clarity of vision, that's the one thing that will get you through the tough times when, the capital raising doesn't happen, when, the product keeps giving you a curveball. So, love that. Aaron, let's dive into both. The first one was when you're too early.
Yeah.
And second one, common traits.
Yeah, so like for me, it's the main question that I ask myself is the tech ready to meet the expectations and KPIs like of the end user, right? So, for example, I'm on the robotics team. In like the 2010s, you had a wave of robotics companies that saw e-commerce like warehouse opportunities, like to develop like pick and place robotics, right? And they got a ton of funding. The only problem is it looked like this like luscious pasture, but it was like this graveyard of like dead bodies, because what they didn't realize was the KPIs were really aggressive. So the throughput was high, and also there was like a small margin for like error rate. And so a lot of them just went out of business. So they didn't really understand like the expectations of the customer. And so I think, consumers are more forgiving, right? But I still think there's like, what's the minimum threshold for like experience that the customer expects, and is the tech ready to deliver that?
Makes a lot of sense. I love that. To wrap things up in the beginning, I nerd out about a lot of future technologies, and since you allocate to more than XR, maybe we'll exclude XR for a second. What are some other things, some other technologies that kind of get you excited, where you keep you up at night, that you say, wow, this is going to be something big?
It's obligatory to say generative AI for all of us. That's where a lot of the tension of capital is, and really captures everyone's imagination. But truly, the development in the past 8-12 months have been breakneck speed, and it's fascinating for sure for all of us that have tinkered with the Midjourneys, the Stable Diffusion, the DALL-Es, and all of the tools right now at our fingertips, and developers who have been developing on top of these platforms. It's fascinating, and that's what keeps me really excited about the goodness of how these frontier technologies will bring, and they'll always be, especially now having moved from California to Florida, people are generally just so skeptical. What's going on with all this? We're all going down under this rabbit hole, and our future generation will. But no, it's actually, I see it very, very hopeful versus a very scary world where people don't have jobs and they're all going to murder each other. We're all going to live in these containers, and the kids will just fall into. We see things so differently. I realize that's why it's our responsibility, moral responsibility, to advocate for and play our part in contributing to positive outcome of all of these amazing technologies. I'm going to speak to my daughter's second grade, 200 people in the school next week, actually. And I imagine it will be very unpopular opinion. I'm going to talk all about what AI, XR, Metaverse is going to do to them. What should they be thinking about in imagining how to collaborate with technology, how to integrate technology into their life and their vision for their future. What defines their worth when it's no longer a job, a career? Is that even relevant? What does that mean, right? So yeah, I feel like these are all very important questions when we come back to the humanity as a center, and our mental health, how to take care of ourselves, our relationship with our loved ones, but also our external ever-expanding circle. How when we come in touch with people, what are the impact we leave upon them? All these conversations are so central when we think about all these frontier technologies are about to disrupt everything that we know. That's what keeps me really excited.
Yeah, and to give a comment that, one of the fascinating things is people like to point that, social media disconnects us. But the reality is, virtually, other than my family that that made me, nobody in this room would be here if it wasn't for the internet. Every single one of my team members I've met online. Every single limited partner I've met somewhere online. Every single, the founders we've backed, right? And so there's a certain like layer of like it's a social connective tissue, really, that like helps us, I think, bring us close together to our tribe. And now we're adding a spatial component. And so I think it doesn't have to be dystopian, you're right. I mean, I should have prefaced by I write dystopian fiction, sometimes I get a little dark, right? But there is a lot of positive too. So last but not least, Aaron.
Yeah.
What industries are you excited about other than XR, kind of that get you excited about the future?
Yeah, I'm actually like excited about robotics and hardware just because of generative AI, right? It's going to touch everything. I think it's good for hardware, bad for software. As you know, so mainstream VC, you need to take long enough to come to market so that you have a moat, but not so long that a VC with like a 10-year time horizon to return the fund can't invest in you, right? So SaaS has sort of been in that sweet spot. And I think with GAI kind of shifting everything to the left, I think you're going to see a lot of hardware get a lot of investment from mainstream VC that it's not getting currently, because it's going to be the time to market is going to collapse, and also so it's going to sort of like, I think it's going to like so right now like SaaS to hardware is like 7-to-1. I think in 5 years like that could be like 2-to-1 or 1-to-1. I just think I'm just like so bullish on hardware right now, especially like robotics. When you're starting to use like large language models for intelligence, it's really opening up a world of like AGI, which we thought was maybe, I don't know, 20 plus years away. And it's definitely like sooner than we think.
I think so too. And I remember as a kid watching iRobot, and it's crazy seeing how the things that used to be futuristic movies slowly become so every day. And on that note, I want to say a big thank you to both of you, first of all, for coming here all the way, supporting, and really excited about, sharing multiple portfolio companies and working alongside each other and hopefully investing more over the coming years. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Felix. Thank you, everyone, for your attention.
Thanks a lot.
Have a great rest of your day.